Welcome to another episode of the Phoenix Rising podcast, journeys of descending into the mysteries and rising from the roots. I am your host, Lisa Hillier, spiritual mentor and priestess. I have guided hundreds of women through my online courses, one-to-one mentorship, and Patreon portal into the mysteries within them to rise rooted into their sovereign selves. Today, I have Natalie Torres on the show with me. Natalie is a mystic, mentor, and healer. Has been honing her gifts as a medium since her teens. She is a certified Reiki master teacher, Kundalini Reiki master teacher, trauma-informed mind-body therapist, and subconscious reprogramming coach. She's passionate about helping women transform trauma into liberation so they can attract love, create, and live from wholeness rather than wounds. Natalie also loves to help modern mystics hone, activate, and own their gifts by grounding the mystical into the practical. This is such a beautiful, powerful episode. Can't wait to dive in with you. Welcome to another episode of the Phoenix Rising podcast, and I am here with Natalie. Welcome, Natalie. And to start, what has been the journey that has led you to the work that you're offering the world today?
Well, hello, Lisa, and I just want to thank you for having me here. And that's a really big question, so I'm just going to dive right in. I grew up as just a very sensitive child and could always sense beyond the 3D. And that tied with having experienced sexual trauma at a very young age. I just feel like between the two, I've always been just desiring to learn more. I've always had this just big curiosity along with this knowing that the information we've been given about this reality isn't completely true. And I'm grateful that I have a mom that's very spiritual and open, and she's always been pretty supportive of me just learning about these parts of myself.
Beautiful. What was your first entry point into kind of dissecting, we'll call it the inversions that we live in this world, or that kind of everything that we're experiencing as a reality is not truth? Do you remember what your first entry point into that was?
Yeah, I just remember just being in school and just that feeling of watching everybody just obey blindly and, say the Pledge of Allegiance at the beginning of the day. And then there was just different groups of people that were very cliquey. None of that made sense to me. I was always just so confused. And because of that, I seemed to just be very, very rebellious and, would purposefully not partake in school activities, would really question authority. I'd ask why a lot. And overall, there was just this deep knowing that this isn't the way it should be. We shouldn't be cliquey. We should all be communing. Yes, I believe in order and everything. And maybe I took my rebellious a little bit too far sometimes, but there was just this knowing that my soul is not being fostered in this environment. And I know that my path is somehow connecting with my soul.
Beautiful. With that, does it feel like there are inversions? Well, I know there are inversions on the planet right now that are really keeping us separate from our truth and from our soul. Are there any that come to mind for you of what those inversions and distortions are? And if it feels like, naming them, and then also for you, how do you come back to your soul and really anchor into that soft space?
Oh, that's such a good question. Yeah, I would say like there's beauty inversions, there's all these pressures on women to stay young, to for me, I fell under the beauty standard of like bigger breasts mean that I'm more beautiful, and I even got my breasts done. So I would say one inversion is definitely beauty. Um, Even just like medical sovereignty. I feel like because I've struggled with Lyme disease, I spent so many years just like wondering why I have all these strange symptoms. And doctors only told me I was depressed, that I had arthritis at like 15, and that I'd be sick forever. And this is just the way it was. Um, and by the time I was 16, I didn't have medical freedom. I was just like on all these pills, and there was just this knowing like this is BS. But yeah, so that led me to seek beyond that inversion. Another big one I feel like that I'm personally, that's very alive for me, is also the healing matrix. And I feel like this energy of the healing matrix can serve so many people, and it's definitely served me, because in these healing spaces I've come back to wholeness. I'm no longer living from such a big trauma response like I used to. However, I feel like there's excessive healing in the healing matrix that has kept me in a state of thinking I need healing. Like I need to keep going back and touching the wound and healing and healing and healing, instead of allowing myself to move on from this stage of healing. So yeah, I feel like anything can become an inversion. And I like to just walk the middle path and be somewhere in the middle. I mean, obviously not with like all the crazy darkness that's in the world. I mean, that's a huge F no for me. But as far as like the healing matrix, and even with beauty standards, I mean, I've kind of just created my own, but I still know that I feel best when I'm respecting my body and taking care of myself. So I feel like there's a balance to everything, almost everything.
Yeah, I love that there's a balance to everything, because with that beauty standard aspect, or actually I'll use this as an example because this is where I'm at on my path right now. And I'm working with Christina. I think you've
Oh,
work
nice.
with Christina. Um, and I, for so many years, have been in the goddess realms, just goddess, everything, divine feminine, everything. And it's beautiful and it's healed me in so many ways. But with my work right now, really healing the wound with the masculine, that's like my primary work right now. I've returned to the masculine face of God and kind of swinging over into that side. And it's like, but I'm finding my middle in that, where, in my early 20s, I was Pentecostal. I went to church all the time, very, masculine face of God. And now I'm finding my own balance
Yeah.
in that, between the goddess and God, and all the aspects of the divine, but really honing in on that masculine face of God. And so that just spoke, when you were speaking to all that so beautifully, it's like we find our own balance in it. We find our own beauty standards, and that is like, when do I feel best in my body? Well, I feel best in my body when I'm moving it, and so that's what is true for me, is what it felt like finding that balance, that middle road that's going to look different for everybody. And it's so powerful to come into that space.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that's definitely where it's at. And I've had a similar journey this year where I realized a lot of like my protesty, that's not really a word, but I'm just going to make it a word right now. A lot of my protesty and rebellious nature was a little bit of a trauma response. I feel like some of it was like a soul knowing. And then on the flip side of that, it was a little bit of like this rebellious feminine that was rebelling, just against order and discipline because of my father wound. And so I was living in that space for a while, like exalting myself a lot And I had never been so single in my life. I mean, a lot of it was my choice because I was like, I don't want to just open my heart to just anybody or my body. But I mean, I felt so invisible to the masculine and to men. And I realized it's because I was holding myself in a masculine frame by exalting myself. Even though I thought I was like doing all the feminine things, it was just this, it became an inversion, and it wasn't inspiring to men to meet me in a space of union when I was moving through life in those ways. So yeah, once I accepted God the Father, I really learned how to love, and I really started to feel loved by the divine. I've always had this connection with the divine, and I've had such mystical experiences throughout my entire life that are pretty wild. And I'm happy to share those, but I wasn't allowing the love of God to move me and to lead me and to direct my life, because there is this underlying belief that I know, and it's my way or the highway, and I'm leading my life. And I've been told by so many people, you're a bad bitch. And so I've just been like operating in that headspace for so long. And even though I didn't like introduce myself as a bad bitch, it's just like I kind of knew like I'm a bad bitch. And I feel like that posturing just kind of started to work against me. It felt good. There'd be like a quick little high of like holding myself high like a goddess, but I'd always like fall low and down in the dumps, feeling lonely, feeling lost, feeling confused. And yeah, it just didn't work for me.
What does that path look like to heal the wound with the masculine so that you could essentially or have arrived into a space of union with a beloved?
Yeah, for me, it was really like coming back into my body. I was doing so many energetic activations, and I lived in a vortex last year in Mexico. And yeah, I've been practicing energy work since 2014. And yeah, I've just been blasting off for almost the past decade, like literally like Kundalini activations, like riding the ethers, and just, I don't know, just being a very cosmic being. And through that, I realized I completely detached from my body and didn't really have a safe sense of safety cultivated within myself. And so for me, healing my masculine wound, it started with like, and you work with Christina, descending deep down into my body and deeply becoming a feeling woman, but not the feeling woman I used to be, which was like trauma response, red alert, like fight or flight, but more so like this soft, accepting, graceful woman that can hold herself through these deep periods of darkness. That loneliness I was feeling whenever I was in the goddess space, I had to sit with her and befriend her. And literally, like I spent like January and February of this year, like holding funerals for myself in my bathtub, just lighting candles with roses, and really just allowing myself to just scream cry for all the years that I have been detached from my body, and also not allowing God to show up for me. Because I wanted to fix my trauma. I wanted to fix everything in my life. And but it didn't always sound like that. It sounded like a lot of moon rituals and showing up to my practices, but underneath all that was an energy of fixing. And I only got myself as far as I could till I finally opened to the masculine face of God.
Beautiful. What have those mystical experiences looked like where God showed up for you? If there's like a couple that come to mind of how that's revealed itself in your life.
Yeah, I'll start with the most recent one. So Christina, our mentor, sent me some new tools to work with, and they were very activating. They've moved a lot in my psyche and in my energy. And the second night I had them, I just started to see a lot of energy in my house, a lot of like colorful orbs, and my ears started ringing, and I started just getting like really hot. And I just had this overwhelming feeling that I wasn't alone in my own house. And my partner went out with his friends, and I was like, oh, I don't want to call him and disturb him. Like he's like having guy time right now. So I just was like in the living room, and I was just like, Christ, please come in the room. And all of a sudden I saw this 6-foot like lightning bolt of light shoot out of the ceiling. And eventually like the energy calmed down. But yeah, I mean, call it Christ or the masculine face of God. I don't know, but it showed up for me, and it delivered, and it just felt like, all you have to do is ask. It doesn't have to be this big ritual or ceremony or big prayer with the perfect words. Just ask, and I'll come through for you. Going back to that little bit of curiosity I've always had, I've just always allowed that to be enough. And I guess God has allowed that to be enough as well. And yeah, another experience that God has shown up for me undeniably. Yeah, I feel like Christ has taught me how to love, like allowing this masculine, divine masculine into my life. It's really taught me how to love. And when I first started dating my partner earlier this year, I was driving to his house, and I mean, I was like straight from Tulum, like in my like flowy feminine energy. Like I was not out here like seeking Christ in a traditional religious way. I was just open to feel good, and open to just be better, and to not feel this heaviness and disconnection. And so I was driving to my partner's house, and listening to like Dea Dova, if you know her, but that's my girl. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to put that one Christian song on. And it's all about the feminine heart, like the undefended feminine heart. And to me, it sounds like the singer is singing to her beloved, not necessarily to God. And so I put it on, and I felt God say to me, like, if you say my name, I will give you the desires of my heart. And our desires of your heart, not my heart. And that really I just started bawling in that moment, because it's like, I really realized that I had it backwards, that I was in a lot of doing, like if I do this manifestation ritual, I'll get, or if I, do this strategy in my business, then I'll get. And even with the guy who's now my partner, I was like, if I show up perfectly poised and say all the right, like conscious things, and if I look perfect, then I'll get his love. And in that moment, I just realized like, it's really actually simple, like if I just allow my heart to be open and exposed and receive God, then all my needs and desires will be taken care of. Then I just get to be a woman. I just get to be a feeling feminine woman that does show up for her business, that does show up for love, that does show up for herself, but she's not overextending herself out of fear that life or God won't meet her.
That spoke really powerfully to a realization that I had probably about a month ago. And it was that I thought God was going to punish me. And it just spoke so loudly. I think it actually came through with the last eclipse, like 2 weeks ago or whatever, this fear that God was going to punish me and not give me what I truly desire. And so I've been sitting with that to heal that father wound, where I can move into that ultimate space of trust and surrender. and knowing that what I desire is what God desires, and God will bring that to me.
Totally.
And it just feels like such a different way. Like I'm still in it very much so.
Same.
Yeah. Um, but from manifesting, it feels so different because I used to like mantra in my head over and over again. And over these past couple months, I've descended so deeply into my body where I don't want to be in my head. I don't want to be thinking about a mantra. I don't want to be like holding a vision. I just want to be like really deeply rooted into my body because it feels so good. Like it
Mhm.
feels beyond anything I've ever felt before. So for you, does anything come up for you around that? But also that like manifestation, you spoke that, you know, that kind of old way of manifesting to what it feels like to just simply be a
Mhm.
woman in your body and not constantly holding a vision or a mantra to bring something in.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of like being pregnant, which I've never been pregnant. So, if there's any mamas listening, I could be totally butchering this. But I imagine when you're pregnant, it's like God, well, technically your man gives you the seed. So the desires, I guess, is the seed. And, a woman isn't like, oh, I gotta like show up and do my mantras, or like, if I don't do my mantras, this baby isn't going to be born through me. And like, there's just this natural trust that of the birthing and the pregnancy process. And yes, like the mom, is taking care of herself and is showing up in like all the ways to become a mother, in this perfect metaphor that I'm using. But she's not like freaking out like about, the timing of it. There's this kind of like this trust that like it's around 9 months. It could be a little bit before that. And another beautiful metaphor is kind of like planting, gardening and growing like plants. The more you like check on the seeds, like the longer it takes. And I just feel like there is some doing in this process, but there's got to be space for the miracle to come through, the miracle of life and the miracle of our desires. And a lot of times these practices and manifestation rituals, or even just reciting mantras, it's like not making room for God to come through and provide the miracle. Yeah, when I first met my partner, I signed up with Christina, and then like 4 weeks after I met him, but I had already been in like a huge death process and working with another mentor on really releasing my ex. I was like in this narcissistic relationship like many years ago, but it had this trauma imprint on me. So I was working with her to like really, really, really come back into wholeness after that. But shortly after working with Christina, I met my partner. But I mean, I had to, really let go of this fixation and control that I was using through manifestation rituals. And what I learned is that manifestation and manipulation kind of have like they definitely have the first four letters in them, MANI. And there's a lot of overlap for me, at least the way I practice manifestation and manipulation, and which was a really hard pill to swallow. Like I really had to get real with myself, and it was not comfortable because I realized I was manipulating energy and God's will for my life to get what I want. And it's not that my desires were bad. Well, some of them were service to self, which was like, I got to hit 10K. If I don't do this in my business, then it means this. And like, oh my goodness. But ultimately all that was hurting myself. It's not like bad because I was a bad person or, ill-willed, but yeah, all of this letting go of this part of my life of manifesting made space for, I believe, for my partner to come through. Like there was this emptiness that the divine was able to fill with the miracle of union, because I made space for that. And it wasn't easy, but it was definitely worth it.
Beautiful. Was there like some crazy story how your partner came on your path, or was it just very soft?
Yeah, we both signed up for Fit for Service, and it was my first time going to one of those, and he's been going for a while. And I don't feel like it was like, I don't know, I was just like in a tube top and like yoga pants, and like I don't even think I was wearing shoes. And yeah, I was like, I told my friends, like, I'm gonna meet my man this weekend. And I was just kind of joking, but I knew like our Aubrey Marcus like attracts like conscious masculine men. And so I was like, yeah, I'm going here and I'm meeting my man. But I didn't like dress up for it. And whenever I was there, I was definitely having my own experience. And I was a little bummed out because the first day, no guys like even came up to me to talk to me. And I was like, damn, like I'm still invisible to men. Like what? But I just kind of let it go. And then the second day he came up to me, and it was just like, we've been on since the moment we met.
Beautiful. Feels like that feminine radiance, allowing things to come in as opposed to controlling or grasping. That's the biggest shift that I've noticed in myself, is that just allowing what is meant to come as opposed to the controlling or grasping. And that can show up in so many ways. And when you were speaking to manifestation, it can show up in money too, when we're controlling and grasping, as opposed to just that like magnetic radiance, like allowing things to come to us. Is there anything that comes up for you around the feminine path of Christ and what that looks like?
Yeah, I grew up like in a really religious household. Well, I say that, but like if you met my mom, like she's done combo, she has a Healy, like she does breath work, and she's just very spiritual. And like she bought some wands from Christina too. So when I say religious, I always have to backtrack and be like, well, I don't really even know what to call my parents, to be honest. And my dad's like very tuned into the unseen. And so I was just really fortunate to grow up in that household. But yeah, like as far as with Christ, I grew up around people that had like a relationship with Christ, but not like a churchy one. That was very condemning and judgmental. It was so not like that. My parents have always celebrated my expression. And so yeah, throughout my spiritual journey, I feel like I kind of like ran from that connection, and wanted to connect with like Kuan Yin and like Green Tara and Mary Magdalene and Mother Mary and Isis. And yeah, like that felt a lot more sexy than to be like, oh, I just connect with Jesus. So like I just explored all these realms and allowed myself to, while also at the same time having so much Christ symbolism just pop up like in medicine ceremonies. I'd get readings and the psychics would be like, oh, I see like Christ around you. And my ears are ringing now that I'm saying that. And also Mother Mary, but it's always mostly been Christ. And whenever I used to like go to the clubs, and when I lived in New York, I just like get in an Uber and the license plate would say like Jesus, or like the Uber driver would be playing Christian music, or he'd start talking to me about Jesus, which is crazy because like in Manhattan, it just seems like that's not really like a Jesus-y place. So yeah, he just kept showing up for me. And now I'm at a place where he's showing me how to love. Like I literally have been so entitled with the masculine, and like really loving from my trauma and seeing how that's limited me and having the types of relationships I wanted. And so by accepting this support from Christ, I've really been shown how to love and how to hold a man. Whereas I feel like, and this is just my experience, whenever I was just connecting with Mary Magdalene or Isis, I felt like that masculine teacher of love was missing. And like Buddha, like his energy didn't really feel like as much of a container for that for me. So yeah, Christ came through earlier this year when I met my partner, and it's just been like nonstop since then. And kind of a relationship I've kept in secret because it's, like I said, it's such a triggering topic. But now I'm like, I just can't keep it in anymore. And I'm finding a way to share it that isn't like me just throwing a Bible at people virtually over. It's like, I don't want to come off that way at all. It's really just as simple as like, I've learned how to love through this energy.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I'm in that space too, where I'm like, I'm not sure how to share about this.
Yeah.
And I think what is really powerful for me right now is it's not one or the other. It doesn't have to be like, I went so far in the goddess realms, and that was beautiful. Mary Magdalene, so beautiful. And Jesus was always there, but he was always like a statue is how he would come to me. And that was recently too. So it's not like I don't have to like go completely to the other side. Like I can find my balance in it. And there is a masculine face of God. Like, there is that. And so Jesus is like softened where he's not a statue anymore when he comes like in visions or when I feel him. So it is finding that middle path for me, because previously, like there's a lot of God trauma around church and religion. And it's like, how do you take the beautiful aspects, like the loving, beautiful, unconditional aspects of God and hold that in your heart, but it's not associated to religion that has caused in some people's experience a lot of damage. So it's like finding that space for all of it.
Yeah, I totally relate to that because like I've seen religion like tear apart parts of my family, and being Mexican, I think it's the Catholic Church that pretty much, robbed the native people of their connection to God, their version of God. So yeah, I mean the trauma from the church kind of just goes on, and I'm just scratching the surface. And so I totally get like just being like, I just want to call God source, or I just want to call God universe. But I've come to realize like this entire time of my journey, like God literally didn't really care what I called him, just as long as I just was open to receive him, even in the moments where I was like in so much pain and agony and like super lost and doing drugs when I was in that narcissistic relationship. I never once cried out to the universe or source, even though I was using those terminologies. It was always God, like God help me. And that little prayer was enough to then lead me to have a relationship with God that is my own. And it's also not distorted by the trauma of the world and religion and even what's happened in my family.
Yeah, it feels so much more intimate to like cry out to God or pray to God or give something to God as opposed to the universe. It just feels like a deeper, intimate relationship when it's like, yeah, there's so much potency to that. And yeah, what it's felt like for me, just coming back to the masculine face of God has really been healing the father wound and the wounds with the masculine, which has been such an integral part of my path. But what you spoke to earlier, kind of around that inversion with healing, it was like I was doing the work over and like consistently, but just wasn't really getting anywhere with men, with the masculine. And so it led me through this last dark night of the soul to ultimately come into this space to heal this wound with God that I didn't know was so prevalent in my life, and with my own earthly father as well.
Yeah. And I'm not sure if you follow Martine, Femininity and Freedom.
I do, yeah.
Yeah, she came into Christina's mastermind called Kept and said something that really stood out to me. And it's just that Christ, he spoke Aramaic, and he would call God Abba, which translates into daddy. And so I feel like he's the only in the spiritual space, what we call ascended master, that would refer to God as daddy. It seems like, and I could be wrong, but from my studies, that like every ascended master was more about like the self being the God. And the mystical path of Christ is actually a path of descension and initiation, and descending into the heart, and as women, deeper down into the womb. And I feel like that's what sets Christ apart.
Beautiful. Beautiful. With that inversion, just when you were speaking a little while ago now, we kind of went down some different roads there, which was so beautiful, but you spoke to the inversions and around beauty and breast plants and everything. Can you speak to your journey with the breast plants and then ultimately having them removed and what that initiation looked like?
Yeah. So, like in my teens, I was just really feeling a lot. I mean, as like all teenagers do. I just feel like I had another layer of that with my spiritual senses as well. And because of that, like I felt super lost and confused, because I didn't have support, like people from like you or me or Christina that have walked the path before and can like be like, oh, what you're feeling is this, not you losing your mind. And so because of that, I developed an eating disorder, and started drinking a lot, and just really lost myself. And I think it was my 18th birthday, I got fake boobs because I just wanted to feel and look different and kind of contort my body into like what society deems as beautiful and perfect. So yeah, I really lost myself over the years. And I got really sick from the breast implants. I think being a highly sensitive person, like putting, silicone, I had saline, but the actual casing of saline is still, there's silicone in there. Yeah, putting all those heavy metals in me just had crazy side effects. Like I was always sick of some kind, at the very least having migraines. And that would like blur my vision and stuff. And I didn't put two and two together. Like breast implant illness was pretty new and not really talked about. And I also love my breast implants, and they were a huge part of my modeling career. And I shot for a lot of like Target bras. And so I was like, I don't want to take these out because these are like my money makers over here. But once I started my spiritual business, like, oh my goodness, the symptoms just got crazier. It was like Source was like, you got to remove these things. God Source. God Source was like, you got to remove these things. And so I'm just so glad I listened.
Yeah. And what did it feel like removing them? Did it feel like, I don't know, because I've never had breast implants, but it almost feels like a going back, like a remembering of your true self in a way, because it's something that wasn't ever fully yours. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I feel like it was like I started feeling more feelings, which I feel like is connected to the heart chakra. And I feel like I had this like feminine homecoming, that like somehow got me to where I am now. Cause I feel like it was something, my feminine nature was something I was denying because I thought it was weak. And then physically I was like, it's not beautiful to be smaller chested, and so on and so on and so on. And getting them removed was like, oh, like I actually have all these body image issues that I've been suppressing. So I got to sit with that part of me. I had months of feeling like sad that I got them removed, even though my body felt immediately better after. And, you know, I was attracting a lot of men that were like not, they were the kind of men that like probably, you know, were into like fake boobs. That's just a really nice way of putting it, like not the kind of man you want to marry. And once I got them removed, like less than 12 months after I attracted my partner. So I just feel like, yeah, there's a lot of different layers to it. Like the quality of men I attracted changed, my relationship to my body changed, and my feminine.
Beautiful. What did the healing path with Lyme's disease look like outside of, you know, the medical industry, which has its place for sure, but what did that journey look like?
Yeah. Very spiritual and galactic. Like I feel like I've realized like how a lot of light workers kind of have health issues, which is weird. I didn't know that until I started like really diving deeper into my symptoms in an alternative way. But I feel like it was almost like of dark forces. Like I personally don't believe that Lyme is of this earth. I feel like it was made by dark forces because it has this energy of being able to shapeshift. And I feel like a lot of darker energies are shapeshifters. And this is why, you know, you can test positive for lupus, you can test positive for rheumatoid arthritis, and it can all be Lyme disease. So yeah, I really felt like spirit come through and tell me that. And then I later did research, and it's a little bit of a conspiracy theory, but like I really, really believe that because I started having like really intense galactic spiritual attacks. And yeah, so a lot of my Lyme journey was a journey back into my body and like really getting spiritually clean, like no more drugs. I was doing plant medicines as well, but I don't even do that anymore. And really just like purifying my vessel and also coming back into my body, and learning how to communicate with my body and tune into my body. Because I feel like, and this is just my experience, but a lot of the illnesses, the chronic illnesses I've experienced have felt like my body's cry to like, for me to be back in my body. And yeah, it felt very, very spiritual.
That's so interesting. In 2019, I started having problems with my body, and I'd never had, and I was a yoga teacher at that time and practicing yoga all the time. And I was like, that's so weird that now all of a sudden I'm having all these problems. And most of them were with my feet, which
Oh, wow.
is just so weird. But when you were speaking to that, it's like your feet are kind of like the ultimate representation of being on this earth and in your body. And I think it was because I was so not in my body, where it was like, come down, like get in your feet. And it would feel literally like the nails, like that Christ had pierced through his
Oh,
feet. It was
wow.
so wild. It was such a weird
Whoa.
initiation time. It was when I was doing my priestess training. And yeah, so anyway, I just had that
Oh
realization
my
as you were speaking to
goodness.
that it was like the feet like come down, and the pain has shifted tremendously as I've really been in my body and descending deeper into my womb space. What if the spiritual attacks look like? Does anything come up for you around spiritual attacks and how that can show up?
Yeah, so I have the ability to like see energy, and it hasn't always been pleasant. Like I've been able to just sense when the energy is off in a space, and all of that. And yeah, whenever I was like, how dark do I want to get? But basically, I was doing a lot of like light language and soul activations, and it was very like upper chakra focused. And I would have these like crazy visuals of just like beings that were not of the light. And I feel like it was there because I wasn't rooted in my soul calling to be rooted in Christ. And that's just me. Like, I can't say every person that speaks light language or does this work is like dark. That's definitely not what I'm saying. I'm just saying for my path in this lifetime, I don't think that's my path. And I feel like I was going against it by living in those realms and definitely practicing in those realms. And I would just see like creepy things. And I've had to get a clearing by my mentor to just clear like lifetimes of when my soul has been just siphoned by darkness, like past lives when I was a priestess and stuff along those lines. I've had like these attacks from dark forces just wanting to take away my power and connection to the divine. And so, yeah, now I just, I can feel, or I know when they're coming on because I can just see it. And then I'm able to clear and work with tools, and also like ask for support from my mentor. So,
yeah. Are there any practices that come to mind for people? Like, I know for myself, and this has been really strong after like COVID and mandates and all that kind of stuff, but going out into the world, I can feel like a lot of energy where I almost don't want to go out into the world as much. Like I do, but I really like it. It can be super intense, very intense. And so I've been learning practices to kind of shield that before I go out into the world. So does anything come to mind for you of how you use that energetic protection and energetic boundaries to not take on people's stuff?
yeah, for me, like, it's just like staying in my body and like feeling my feet on the ground. And if I'm sitting down, like I'll really like connect with the chair, which sounds so funny, but like I'll like slowly like rub the chair, like to where, like not everybody can see, but I'll even do it sometimes when I'm podcasting, just really slowly touch like whatever my hands are touching, my tailbone and my feet. Because I realize like when I'm feeling other people so deeply in my surroundings, it's because I'm too open or my energy is kind of going up and out. And so I do my best to just like pull it down into my body with breath, like almost like sucking my energy down my channel and landing in my root, and then feeling my feet on the ground in my tailbone.
Yeah, that's powerful. I feel like when you're speaking to that, like I've been exhaling, like I'm exhaling through my root or through the soles of the feet. And it sounds crazy to be like, oh, I can push my exhales into the earth, but we 100% can.
Yeah.
And it just like moves the energy down. Where like I'm fully in my body in this moment. And it feels really good.
Yeah. I didn't realize I had that power, I'd just be like, I feel so, and even like the sound, like I have really sensitive sound as well. That would be overwhelming. And yeah, so I think just deeply rooting in my body and also setting boundaries, like there will be times at night I'll be in the bathtub and I'll start hearing even like really pleasant sounds, like angelic, like chimes and high pitches. And I'm like, I'm just trying to take a bath right now. Like, so I'll just, set the container or the boundary of like, I don't really want this right now,
Yeah. Clearing the boundaries. I just want to be in my body,
Yeah.
enjoying my bath in this moment.
Exactly.
Yeah. What came up for me too is I think we're so overstimulated right now that our nervous system can be quite hijacked, and that like rooting into the body and descending down regulates the nervous system a
Mhm.
lot in my experience. So then that overstimulation, I'm not feeling it
Yeah.
as like not nearly as much when I go out into the
Yeah.
world. And I see you're wearing a Healy. I didn't wear
Oh
mine.
yeah. Where's it? Oh my goodness. Yeah, I am. Sometimes I don't even know I am.
Do you want to speak to the Healy? Because what I've been using mine for a lot has been nervous system regulation, and I've felt a considerable shift with it. So yeah, do you want to speak to the Healy, love?
Oh yeah. So I've just had like residue symptoms of Lyme, which has shown up with like a lot of fatigue and just feeling physically weak. Um, and I've been really just desiring to get back in a groove at the gym since getting my breast implants out. And I would like work out before my Healy, get really sore and not be able to show up again for like 5 or 6 days. And if you know anything about fitness, like that's not really consistent. Like for me, ideally, it's like probably 3 times a week, not once a week. Um, Even 4 would be great, but 3 is like, if I can do 3, that's great. So I just noticed since having my Healy, like I have so much more stamina, just so much more stamina. And I can run and lift weights in one workout. Whereas before, like I would just be so exhausted by working out and moving my body. And that's probably the biggest noticeable change. Another one is also cognitive stamina. If you know anything about Lyme, it also just makes you all around tired, like mentally exhausted. And that's not even counting all the craziness that's gone on in the world. And we're all kind of in those states anyway. So Lyme just like has added another layer to that. But yeah, since having the Healy, I feel like I've gotten more mental stamina as well. So I can just go a little bit longer and feel energized longer, which is so life-changing.
Yeah. I had another aha moment because I used to go to the gym. I still go to the gym, but when I would go to the gym, I would come home and I'd be pretty tired for the rest of the day, kind of like not really do that much. So it wasn't really conducive because that was like my
Mhm.
whole day. But since using the Healy, that doesn't happen anymore. Like my energy is quite like I have a lot of energy after going to the gym and doing physical activity. So yeah, it's
Yeah, I noticed
interesting
that too.
how it shows up in different ways. Um, and are you doing the business side of the Healy?
I've thought about it. I'm gonna like look into it, but I haven't really decided. I've just been organically sharing and I've had like people reach out and that feels really good, but I'm not sure like about the business side of like pushing it every day. It seems
Mm,
to just be something that like I've gained momentum from just being like, I love this thing and I'm obsessed with it, you know?
yeah, me
Yeah.
too. That's how it's shown up for me. I just share it. I have been like pushing it a little to my mother, but
Yeah, my mom got one.
and my daughter. I'm like, just try
Oh,
this. But yeah, she'll come around. She'll get there for
I
sure.
love that.
Yeah. What is the work that you're offering the world? What does the work that you're offering the world look like?
It's definitely shifted. I was doing a lot of like soul activations and energy activations and helping women connect with their like priestess gifts. And for now, I've put that on pause just to kind of like go in a different direction. And if it comes back into my life, I'll trust that it's meant to be. But for now, I've kind of set that to the side. And now what really is lighting me up is helping women heal their trauma from the masculine, which is how I started my business. But my energy work just became so exciting that I kind of set that to the side. So I'm kind of going back and then also just helping women like create that openness to receive God and be led by God.
Mhm. I love that healing the wound with the masculine. I feel that, well, it's been such a huge part of my path. And I feel like it's such integral work right now for women and women to heal that wound with the masculine, because we can really see the inversions and distortions that have been interwoven throughout society, throughout our collective, to separate or divide men and women and kind of keep us at a bit of a war with each other, where we're not coming into this true union space where we're really complementing each other and like serving each other in a really beautiful way, like where we're on the same team, It's like when we heal that wound with the masculine, we're not just recreating trauma bonds in relationship. When I think of most of my relationships throughout my life, it was just a trauma bond where we were reliving different scenarios for each other. So it's such a beautiful path to heal the wound with the masculine, painful, messy, all of it. But I feel like it's really necessary on the planet right now for us to come into that space of collective healing.
Yeah, I feel that. And also just like giving women permission to be women. Like, I know I've always felt like I need to like go out there and hunt to make things happen. And that really came with the price with my body. And I always like exhausted myself or just felt like out of integrity in some way. And so, yeah, it just feels so good to be leading my life and allowing God to lead me where I can't lead myself in a way that just like doesn't feel like it comes with such a big price on my body.
Yeah, I resonate with that. Like my daughter's 21. So I always say I was a single mother. She's still but she's 21. So she doesn't live with me anymore. But it was like that very like, I can do it on my own, and so being a single mother, working the 9 to 5, going to university, like I became so hardened because I was really trying to make it in a very masculine environment where I wasn't in my feminine at all. And I can see how that created a lot of pain and suffering ultimately, as opposed to just allowing myself to be supported and held, so that space to be fully in our feminine is so beautiful.
Yeah, I feel like the burnout like really just like sucks our pleasure and our radiance and our magnetism. It's really hard to create from there.
Yeah. Burnout. That's what I was going through. Yeah. Adrenal fatigue, burnout, juggling a lot of balls for sure, kind of all in the air, trying to hold it all together. That's what it feels like, when we're working and mothers and trying to do it all. It's exhausting, very, very exhausting.
Yeah.
What is, big one. What has been your biggest lesson along the way?
The best things are simple, like the best teachings are simple. I feel like I was in a space just that like I kind of like overcomplicated things, or like I'd overanalyze teachings and always kind of be like grasping for more information. But I think that was a way like my mind was just distracting myself from the fact that it gets to be really simple. And like love is simple. A lot of times God communicates to us in the most simple ways. And the truth is usually pretty simple too.
That's a big one, because I feel like as humans, we like to complicate things and have like a whole manual, and it really can be that simple.
And I love to intellectualize like the spiritual teachings for sure. And I love all the fancy words and all of that, but it also gets to be simple.
Yeah, it can be simple. Beautiful. How do you experience the mysteries?
I used to experience the mysteries by leaving my body and kind of like bypassing. And now I experience even more of the mysteries just by grounding and descending down into my body and my womb. I found that it's just as mystical when I'm in my body than whenever I used to leave my body. And so, our womb is literally like the doorway to so many different realms, and it's all within us, and we don't have to leave our bodies to get there. So, and then you also just feel better too.
Yeah, I have to say, like, when my mind is quiet, it just feels like heaven to be fully present in my body. And I haven't experienced that in such a long time. And so to be in that space is just like, this feels amazing. It's so relaxing and peaceful. And I can just be, because we can just be like, I could just be sitting here, just being, but I could be doing like a crazy lady in my mind, And so when that quietens, that actual like being happens, and it's in that descent, which is so powerful.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
How do you root into the self?
Lately it's been by like this natural process of kind of like decluttering and deprogramming. I don't know if there's like a how-to for that, but this whole year it's been like a descending, unlearning, deprogramming, to really get back to like what's true for me and what, God and life look like for me. Cause I feel like I was taking on so many other teachers and teachings as my own, and some of them do get to stay, but I guess the how is really just trusting that like I don't need to be doing so much or learning so much or reading so much or listening to so much, and just learning to be completely comfortable in silence and nothingness.
Beautiful. Is there anything else you want to add to this beautiful conversation before we close? Any offerings that you have coming up?
I have space
on your heart. Sorry,
yeah. I have space in my private mentorship, and the space is just pretty much everything that we've been talking about today. Like for the woman that's mystical but has kind of hit a wall with some of those teachings and like the new age, but still desires to be a mystic that's rooted in herself and God, and also heal her relationship to the masculine so she can relate to men from a healthy space and attract from a healthy space. If you're listening to this, I just really want every woman to know that they can heal from anything, even if, you're calling in your man and it's been however much time, or if you have a health issue and it's just seems like it's not going away. I promise you that there's divine timing, and it sounds so annoying to hear that, but like your day will come, and just stay open to receive God and continue to surrender to his timing, and it's going to happen for you. I promise.
Beautiful. Thank you for this conversation. It'll be in the show notes where everybody can reach out to you and experience your magic. So thank you, love.
Thank you, Lisa, so much.
Thank you so much for joining me for an episode of the Phoenix Rising podcast. Please like, share, download, subscribe if you enjoyed this episode, and I will see you next week for another episode on the Phoenix Rising podcast. Sending so much love.